Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the currently unnamed BGSU Sports Podcast. So I will let our gracious host take it from here.
Mike says welcome back, but this is kind of welcome. This is technically our second podcast, but due to some technical issues, this will be the first one that you are hearing.
I'm Nathan Elikanich.
And I am Ryan Sokoviak, and the voice you heard to start the night was Stat Boy Mike Nowak.
Woohoo!
I don't know if he's really a stat boy, but that's what we're going to call him for the night and for every episode going forward, I guess. I guess we should do the introduction thing again since no one knows what this is or what we're doing. Basically,
Take it away.
wait.
What?
No, not that.
No. We're not starting from the top. From what we did last week that we have to now do again because
About introducing what the podcast is?
yes,
Okay.
because no one
That's what I
knows.
meant. Take it away.
Oh, I thought you looked at Mike like he was going to do it. No, I got this.
Okay.
Assuming we can get our stuff together, which I'm not as optimistic about anymore after the first episode of the podcast went by the wayside.
It's not my fault.
I'm not saying it's your fault, Nate, but you were the one who was
Your
supposed
eyes
to.
say differently.
It was your fault.
Even Mike says it was my fault.
Everyone's condescendingly looking at Nate right now, and by everyone I mean me and Mike, the only two other people in the room. But
You guys suck.
assuming that we can get our stuff together, which I think we should now that we actually know what we're doing, this will be a weekly podcast on the happenings of BGSU Sports. Mike said at the top, the BGSU Sports Podcast. We are not affiliated with the university's athletic department in any way. We are a branch of the BG News, which since you will be viewing this on bgnews.com, I think you could probably infer that. My job at the BG News is I'm the current hockey beat reporter as of May 2012. Well, after May 2000. I don't know how to properly say this. For the last year, I was the sports editor at the BG News, which I am no longer. So I'm just kind of hanging around and, writing hockey
Write
this year.
stories and stuff?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. One
Alright.
story so far this year. Not too bad of a tally.
I currently took on the role of a creative director. I was the assistant web editor, but now I'm kind of on the business end.
Award-winning bgnews.com. We should
Right.
throw that out there.
Yes, definitely. Of course.
Yes. Basically, what we will be doing on this podcast is sort of a streamlined view into what is provided through the paper. We'll just basically start off by going through what went on in BGSU Sports from the past week, looking at past scores, and then looking ahead to the weekend ahead in action. And then the main focus of the podcast will be one topic, which last week it was a overview of the football season, but since we don't really want to do that again, and we have games to talk about this weekend, it will be a preview of the Florida game.
Big games.
Yes, big way to start the year. So I guess we'll start off with looking at what BGSU Sports have been up to so far this season. Nate, why don't you start us off with that?
Men's soccer took on the Michigan State Spartans this past...
That was tonight. We're recording this Wednesday night, but you probably won't hear this until Friday, so I guess it'll be 2 days in the past when everyone hears it.
So they took them on Wednesday night, and they fell to the Spartans 2-1. Let's see.
Home
here.
game.
Huh?
Home game.
Home game.
Big getting, a Big Ten team into Cochran Field. That's always nice.
Oh, yeah. You get Michigan in there sometimes, too.
Yes, last year.
Let's see who had the lone goal for the Falcons. It was Zach Lemke.
He had a good year last year. I remember reading the stories. He seemed to be one of the guys who was named a lot as a goal scorer.
Played 90 minutes. I guess I don't really know how to read soccer stats. No offense. I'm assuming it's 2 shots on goal. And
It might be 2 shots. Well, I'm assuming he had. I don't know. You have the stats pulled up. I don't have those stats pulled up.
anyways. Bowling Green had 5 saves to Michigan State's 2. And fouls per period were 10 for Bowling Green and 12 for Michigan State. We need to freshen our stuff on soccer because we're not that good.
I know. I'm not what you would call soccerly educated.
I used to play soccer, but that's as far as I went, unfortunately.
I played soccer when I was 4.
Yeah, that's why.
And seeing as I can't even remember what I did last week, there's no way I'm going to be remembering my soccer career at all.
There was a hell of a turnout, though. 912 people.
No, that's pretty good for a soccer game here, seeing as it seems like there are some football games we can't get that many. Hope we have our first one-liner of the night.
Hey-o.
We have drums in the background, but we will not be doing the
It'd be very, very loud.
Yeah, that would be loud and probably unpleasant.
Incredibly.
And seeing as we are locked into what is essentially a prison cell in our basement right now, I think that our ears would be ringing for the rest of this podcast. Let us move on to women's volleyball. The Falcons started their season this past week up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, as part of the Marquette Challenge, and they dropped both games, falling in straight sets to Marquette and falling in 4 sets to Northwestern. Danielle Tanyan, get pronunciations right.
Mm-hmm.
She had a very strong weekend. I believe she was named to the all-tournament team. She had 19 kills in the second game against Northwestern. That's always a very impressive total. She had a good year last year and figures to have a good year as well this year.
Over to women's soccer, yet again. The Lady Falcons head to Minnesota this week.
You're not allowed to say Lady Falcons. It's sexist.
Oh,
They're
I'm
just the
sorry.
Falcons.
Sorry, the Falcons.
Don't listen to ESPN. ESPN doesn't always know what it's talking about.
I like that, though. I don't understand what the problem is. Anyways.
I was told it was sexist when I first came here, so I'm just going with that train of thought.
Are you bombing a major corporation, good sir? This podcast is never going to get off the ground now.
Oh, man. I'm going to be applying for jobs one day, and they're going to come back. I was applying for a job at ESPN, and 25 years down the road, and they're going to come back to this podcast. Did you say we don't always know what we're talking about?
They will strike you down.
Yeah, well.
Hold on one second. I'm trying to pull up these stats.
Women's soccer stats? Come on, Nate.
Well, there's I don't know, because they play Minnesota this week, and I don't know.
As in Golden Gophers, Minnesota?
I believe so. Here we go.
Ooey pooey.
Ooey pooey.
IU.
IUPUI. There we
Indiana
go.
University, Purdue University of Indianapolis. I have been to that campus. Their student union is incredible. Fun fact about Ooey Pooey for the day. But now we'll go to stats.
Okay. So the Falcons took on IUPUI and won with a final of 2-1. It was the first win of the season for the Falcons. Let's see. Goals by Madeline Weidman and Tracy Togba. I hope I said that last name right. Lots of shots on goal by the Bowling Green Falcons. 20-8. So it was pretty much a shooting fest.
It's always good.
And let's see. Fouls were pretty much even.
No one cares about fouls.
Yeah, okay. And then the lone goal by IUPUI, Ashley Doreski, with an assist from Kelly Parks.
Who are they playing this weekend?
Hey, Ryan,
Minnesota.
fun fact, we can't hear you when you're not next to the mic.
I wasn't meant to be heard there. I was directing him in the direction to go.
Like I said before, I believe they're playing Minnesota. And you asked the Golden Gophers?
Yes, that is the Golden Gophers.
And yes, it is
At
the
Minnesota.
Golden Gophers.
And speaking of other sports starting up this weekend, the men's and women's cross-country team plays, I believe it is their only home match of the year. Yes, that is correct. The Mel Brott Collegiate Opener at 6:30 on Friday. For any of you interested in going out to that, I believe that is held at the track behind Dwight Perry Stadium. And speaking of Dwight Perry Stadium, football. It is here.
Yeah, buddy.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
The Falcons with a doozy of an opener against the University of Florida Gators.
It's going to be a blood match.
I don't know. You know what, Nate? Nate is taking the pessimistic view to this game. I am not so much.
It's not going to be so much that the Gators are just going to blow them out, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than you think it's going to be.
You just completely changed courses on me there. You just said it's going to be a bloodbath, and
No,
then you said it's going to be closer than everyone thinks it's going to be. You know what?
I said blood fest.
Blood match.
Because you
Blood
know,
match.
blood
That's what I
bath
was-
and blood fest is so much different.
You know what? Let's go to our good friends at the MGM Grand and see what the line is for the weekend, because I actually don't know what it is, and I probably should know this.
I think it's going to be a lot closer than you think.
Well, let's see what the experts think this game will be. There we go. Vegas Sportsbook odds. I should also preface this by saying we do not endorse gambling. However, the betting line that's a part of our pick'em. So it's there.
It's good to know what people are thinking.
It's there, yes. the experts think that Florida is going to win this game by 4 touchdowns, a 29-point favorite they are. As of, I think that's Wednesday. They, shoot, I just lost my spot. There we go. They opened at 23-point favorites, so I'm assuming that means since it went up, or the line went further away. Mm-hmm. I'm making hand gestures as if people can see me right now. I'm assuming from my limited knowledge of how sports betting works that a lot of people are taking Bowling Green with the points, so they're giving Florida more points as to give people an incentive to take Florida to balance out the betting. Right. I think that's how it works. Don't quote me on that, though. But as of Wednesday night, when we were recording this podcast, Florida's a 29-point favorite. And if you are the betting kind, I am not saying that I endorse gambling, which is illegal in, I think, every state except Las Vegas.
Sports betting?
Yes.
Okay.
Unless,
I was going to say,
gambling's not legal in every state.
No,
it just got legal.
Sports betting. Sports
betting.
Sports betting. I would take Bowling Green with the points. Because after listening to Will Muschamp, second-year Florida coach, his press conference today, it's about 18 minutes long, and he sounds worn out of answering questions. It sounds like that was my first impression of it, but it seems as if he has no clue what he is getting into, and I say that as if BG is primed for an upset, which I'm not saying as much as I'm implying, but let me put it this way. If you want to listen to this interview, which I really think you should, if you like BG football, his Monday press conference is, I don't know where the link went. It's somewhere on Florida's official athletic page. It's embedded on the side. He is asked 3 or 4 questions about Bowling Green, and each time it seems as if he skirted the question and brought the talk back to Bowling Green coach Dave Clawson, and he reiterated his respect for Clawson and how he's a good coach and how he had success at past destinations, which he was a very good coach at Richmond, but the year before he came here, he was a very unsuccessful offensive coordinator at Tennessee. Not that Muschamp and Clawson ever faced off, then I don't know if Texas ever played Tennessee during that season. And also the only player that Will Muschamp mentioned by name was Matt Schultz, which starting quarterback, 2-year starter. He threw 3,000 yards, 28 touchdowns last year. That's obvious. I found it curious that when in his introductory statement, whatever you want to call it, and he was going through everything, he said, they have a good quarterback returning, and that's when he mentioned it by name and went into statistics and whatnot. All he said regarding the BG running game, which I think is going to be the strength of this team this year, is they return all their backs, which is incredibly funny, seeing as Bowling Green's starting running back, Anton Samuel, was the MAC Freshman of the Year last year, ran for, I believe, 850 yards, and probably would have touched 1,000 yards had he not missed 3.5 games, who also, by the way, is from Florida's backyard in Opa-locka, Florida.
I don't know. It just seems like you have to assume that an SEC coach going into this game really isn't going to take this all that seriously.
Exactly. They say he has,
but I feel like they could put their second string in and probably just
possibly
bury us anyways.
Well, we'll touch on that in a second regarding Florida's quarterback play. Right. But you got the usual, we respect everyone we play thing. But I mean, you get the feeling of listening to him that he's using this game as sort of a test game for their season.
I mean, they very well probably should, because I really just think it's either going to be a somewhat close game or Florida's just gonna
I think it's either going to be Bowling Green wins close or Florida wins big. I don't think Florida wins this game close.
If BG wins, it's going to be by at least 3.
It'll come down to the end of it, but I don't see there's any way that Florida wins this game close. It'll either be a blowout or they'll lose, because there are so many question marks surrounding this Florida team right now. Speaking of, I mentioned the test game theory. After this game, Florida dives right into SEC play, taking on new SEC member Texas A&M in College Park, and then follows that up with a game against Tennessee in Knoxville. So they dive right into the meat of their schedule after this game. So you have, I believe this is what they call a trap game, a game you should win right before a couple of big games. Granted, it's your season opener, and if you're not pumped up to play your season home opener, then you probably shouldn't be playing college football. But I just think that there's so many negatives going against Florida right now. I'm it may sound like I'm implying that BG is going to win this game. I think there's a lot better chance that BG wins this game than 29-point Florida favorites would suggest. But I mean, we've seen crazier things happen.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
May I
too...
recall a certain, I think it was University of Michigan versus Appalachian State?
Appalachian State's
First of all,
not even
no,
a MAC,
hold on.
not even
hold
a
on,
MAC
hold on.
team.
Let's not even go there. You know what?
FCS team.
We're past Rich Rod. This is not a Go Blue podcast.
No. I believe there is a 10-year waiting period until you're allowed to say that doesn't matter anymore because
it doesn't matter.
It does matter.
We got rid of our head coach, and Brady Hoke is now going to lead Michigan
to a
national title.
I knew
7-5 record this year.
I knew that little stab would do something.
But
they're ranked 8th. Come on.
We're not going to go into a tangent about this because
this could last a whole podcast.
It could last longer. It could
back
probably
to the
last
Falcons.
3 podcasts.
Trying to incite rage.
I think
rage.
in mentioning this game, looking at Florida's, I'm going to close this betting tab now because I don't really need it anymore.
You sure you don't want to place a bet?
No, I can't place a bet on. It just tells me the odds.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm done after.
Want to talk to my bookie? I got a bookie.
No, after going to Vegas this summer and getting screwed over on a parlay card by a walk-off home run by the Oakland A's, I think I'm done with sports betting for a while.
Are you saying you're a gambler?
Dude, it was in Vegas. It's allowed.
Oh, Vegas.
That's right. But
Anyways.
we'll since we had a couple of BG News article tie-ins last week, I want to it's not an article tie-in, it's a column tie-in by our assistant sports editor Ethan Easterwood. The headline doesn't really do too much justice for it. BG plays Florida on Saturday. I read this earlier today. I think it was, the paper came out today, right?
Yes.
Okay. I seem to forget that. But it was basically, stating that while overmatched, you have not this lack of respect factor that I'm sure the Falcons will probably feel. You're almost a 30-point underdog. Obviously, you're going to feel a little disrespected. But then I don't know if they listened to what Muschamp had to say, but when he sort of indirectly, I don't want to say disrespects, but kind of overlooks you.
See, it's kind of like overly underestimates the Falcons.
We see. I don't think he didn't exactly come out and say we're looking past them, because obviously if he says we're looking past them, then that's plastered all over the Bowling Green locker room, and that's the only thing that's said about this game coming forward. But I think by his lack of educated answers in this press conference, that's his way of indirectly implying that he's looking past them because he doesn't care enough about this matchup to actually learn what he's talking about here.
Yeah, I guess Muschamp with a younger coach in the SEC, he should probably take this a little more seriously than say, I don't know,
I'll use this quote I distinctly remember this question. Someone asked him, what improvements have you seen in Bowling Green under Dave Clawson? And he specifically said, well, I can't really speak to that because I've only seen game film from last year. And Ethan specifically mentions that in this article. He says, nothing to lose. Obviously, we can talk about that, how BG literally has nothing to lose in this game. All the pressure is on Florida. And listening to the two coaches talk, you can tell that Dave Clawson just sounds like the happiest guy in the world talking about this game. And Will Muschamp just seems like, we have to play this game, blah, blah, blah.
I'm sure they're, they want to get right into the SEC play. They want to get into,
because that was what a lot of the press conference was about, was putting last season where they were absolutely terrible and got embarrassed. He basically called his team weak after they got steamrolled.
Ohio State.
No, that wasn't last year. They didn't play Ohio State last year.
The Gator Bowl?
Oh, that's right. They did play in the Gator Bowl. I was completely oblivious to the fact that a team with such a terrible record can get into a New Year's Day Bowl.
Right.
Being a Notre Dame fan, I guess that I want to find this run game gets overshadowed by the previous pass-heavy offenses. I need to find this point. I swear that he said it at some point.
Who?
Ethan. I could have swore that he mentioned the wide receivers, but the reason I want to say this is because Muschamp specifically said they return one returning wide receiver. When you throw in tight end Alex Bear, that's two, Bear and Sean Joplin. So if he's only looking at game film from last year, he has nothing on Bowling Green's wide receivers, which is, I find, incredibly hilarious because arguably the most talented player on this offense and wide receiver Jerron Stokes didn't play for BG last year because he was a Michigan transfer and had to sit out the year. So does that mean he has no idea who Jerron Stokes is? He just thinks he's some
Probably. Unless
MAC recruit, and he just comes into the swamp and outruns everyone because Jerron Stokes is a very fast individual. He was clocked at running a 4.4 coming out of high school. That is essentially SEC speed.
Yeah.
So
I mean, he got drafted by a Big Ten team, so he definitely has
recruited, not drafted.
Sorry, recruited, drafted. NFL.
So that's just the part that's unfathomable to me. That it sounds like we're picking on Will Muschamp here. That's not necessarily the focus. That's not the focus. I'm just kind of flabbergasted that, I mean, you would be so unprepared for an interview, basically probably because I've been spoiled by interviewing good coaches who know their stuff. I mean, Chris Bergeron, hockey. I mean, the guy is a wealth of information. Even Dave Clawson. I mean, even Dave Clawson. That sounds condescending to say, but I mean, Dave Clawson is also a wealth of knowledge and information. I mean, obviously, going into this game, it doesn't really need to be that evident because everyone knows about Florida and the talent that they have on their team. But I mean, you've had all offseason to prepare for this game, and the only name you can specifically mention is Matt Schiltz. That seems a little short-sighted to me.
I don't. Is Florida even ranked this year?
Florida, I believe they're number 23 in one of the polls.
Yeah, they're ranked.
One of the polls.
Well, let's see.
I don't remember which poll, if it was AP or USA Today. I don't even know if there's
BCS.
Oh, BCS doesn't come out for a while, bud.
Oh. All right, never mind.
Here, Clawson, the Media Week 1. Open season at number 23, Florida.
They have a lot of ground to make up, too. So this game does
Florida?
mean a lot to them.
Florida? Well, yeah, if you lose the first game, I mean,
Right.
you're going into the season, I mean, into the meat of your SEC schedule. I mean, we said...
Yeah, but they'll drop out. They'll
yeah,
essentially
obviously,
drop
you'll
out
drop
of the
out.
ratings.
You won't essentially, if you lose to a mid-major team on the first week of the year, you will not receive any votes at all. You won't even be in the others receiving votes. You will just flat out fall out of the rankings. And then, I mean, you get Texas A&M, Tennessee, Kentucky, LSU, your next 4 games. Before, I guess, I mean, Vanderbilt's even a good team this year. Then you get South Carolina, Georgia, Missouri, and then they have all their patsies at the end of the year in Louisiana Lafayette and Jacksonville State. So, I mean, you're literally jumping into the meat of your schedule right after this game. So, I mean, we can talk and what the effect of losing this game would have on Florida, but I don't think it really matters because this isn't a Florida podcast.
Right.
Rather,
This is a Falcons podcast.
The effect of winning this game would have on the Falcons, which I think is...
I think it could launch us into the season like very
It will launch
positively.
us. Yeah, obviously, you start off against... I mean...
Right. But I mean, you know what I mean.
I think it was 2008 they started off the season against Pittsburgh, who was ranked 25th at the time, and they won that game. And 2008 was actually Greg Brandon's last year here, so I kind of take back what I said about that. I think they went 6-6 that year, but I do remember that game because that was at the time in my life where I enjoyed watching ranked teams lose. I still enjoy watching ranked teams lose because I think it's hilarious. Let's find out this. For the sake of accuracy.
There's a train going by.
Yes, maybe. Hopefully you cannot hear this train.
I can hear it in the headphones, so...
Well,
everyone listening to this probably listens to BG and also knows the burdens that
you understand what's going on. Yes, it was 2000. It was the 2008 season where they started off by defeating Pittsburgh, who was ranked 25th at the time. And maybe this isn't the best way to judge it because the Falcons followed that up with a home game against Minnesota. That's cool. Big Ten team came here and they got stomped in that game, and then traveled to Boise to take on Boise State, and that was in the midst of the Broncos seemingly winning every game. I think that was pre-Kellen Moore. I think Jared Zabransky was the quarterback at that time. But anyway, the Falcons finished that season 6-6, and that was the last game. It would be last year of the Greg Brandon era. So winning this game would not necessarily catapult the Falcons into a potential MAC title winning season, but I mean, it would be a good start.
It'd be a good start for... I especially think it would be a good start for Clawson because it'll make him feel like he's actually done something with the Falcons.
I think this is a do or die year for him.
Yeah, I could see him. If he doesn't do well, I could definitely see him going.
Because we talked about this last week, which obviously no one knows about because that is lost in the bowels of Mike's computer somewhere.
Oh wait, well,
I have it.
Nate has it.
Nate has it now, but we've decided
It's
that
so old that it's past its time.
The shelf life is no longer good for it. But we talked last week how Clawson was expected to do well his first year. He wasn't expected to do well his second year, and the building was supposed to start last year, which it did. They had a 3-win improvement, so if there's another sub 500 season, that could be on. He could be on, find himself on the hot seat heading into next year, or if they rip off 8-9 wins this year, I mean,
yeah, he has to prove himself.
yes, but
I mean, this is definitely, like you said, do or die year. If he doesn't get something going, then he's gone.
Anyway.
And I could see it. I honestly could see a change next year.
we
I
are
don't know.
getting a little off topic here.
Sorry.
Let's go back to the game. I'm making more hand gestures. I think the fascinating thing about Florida in this game is, like I mentioned, the fact that they seem that they're using this as a test game. And by test game, I mean they're going with a 2-quarterback system. And by going with a 2-quarterback system, I mean Will Muschamp has no clue what he's doing. Because the rumor, well, not rumor, what he said he's going to do is use one quarterback for the first quarter and the other quarterback for the second quarter. Which quarter each quarterback will play. The 2 quarterbacks are Jeff Driscoll and Jacoby Brissett. I hope I pronounced that name right. I think I did. But one of them is going to play the first quarter, the other is going to play the second quarter, and then at halftime they will reevaluate their quarterback play, and then one of them will play the second half, which makes absolutely no sense to me.
Yeah, that's a dumb move.
Especially since this was brought up in the BG press conference this week. The guys aren't exactly similar quarterbacks. Driscoll is more of a passer. Brissett is more of a runner. Both are very talented. I believe Driscoll was the number 1 quarterback in the nation in his recruiting class a couple years ago. So the talent's there, but the production is not. Last year, where was this article? Here we go. No, that was not it. I'm starting to get off the microphone here. Here we go. I had this pulled up. Last year, 5th-year senior Jeff Brantley was Florida starter. He went down midway through the year with an ankle injury. Driscoll, in his place, completed 16 of 34 passes, which is good for only 47.1%, for 148 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Then, I believe in his second game of playing quarterback, Driscoll got injured. So Jacoby Brissett had to come in and completed 18 of 39 passes, good for 46.1%, for 206 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. So the small sample size for both of these guys isn't necessarily good.
Mm.
And you couple that in with the fact that, I mean, Florida's not, they don't exactly have a lot of household names like they used to have. I mean, guys like Jeff Demps, Chris Rainey, Percy Harvin, obviously long gone. Looking at their 2 deep, I mean, I'm not going to pretend to be a college football expert, but there's not a lot of recognizable names on their 2 deep on offense. So, I mean, obviously, these guys are talented.
Yeah.
They're fast. They're a few years removed from a national championship. Obviously, there is a lot of talent on this team, but none of it's really proven.
No, going into the season without a quarterback, and then taking this game on is like, well, I guess we'll decide afterwards. It's like, okay, but like you said, they jump right into conference play. So do you really want a somewhat, super young quarterback, taking you into the conference play and just hoping that they do well?
Both are true sophomores, by the way. We should throw that out there. Being a true sophomore, it isn't exactly. I mean,
I don't know. Why wouldn't Muschamp pick one halfway through the summer and be like, you're going to start?
It seems like we've
step
seen
it
this
up.
a lot more recently, that guys will wait until very late into camp or even take it into the season what they're going to do with their quarterback play, which, I mean, I've never really seen. Off the top of my head, can think of an instance where it worked.
I mean, I guess that might be our advantage.
But yeah, exactly.
You're coming in with Shills.
He's firmly entrenched as the starter, and as we also mentioned this last week, this is the first time in his now going on his 3rd year as a starter that he hasn't had a quarterback battle in camp. So he has been taking the number 1 reps the whole time. So that's obviously advantageous for him. He's had extra time to develop chemistry with his wide receivers, which is huge because Sean Joplin's the only returning one who's actually somewhat established himself. But I completely just lost my train of thought where I was going with that.
We were talking about Florida,
it was
quarterback.
I mean, it just goes back to the potentially misguided theory that I have that Florida's using this as a test game. They see a MAC team that was sub 500 last year, and obviously they know nothing other than the last year because Muschamp said they've only looked at game film from the past year, and he couldn't specifically answer a question that talked about this team's development over the last 2 to 3 years because he hasn't gone back that far, which I don't understand why. You're going in, you're looking at that only factor is 5-7 last year and a MAC team.
Yeah.
You are setting yourself up for failure right there because this team is going to be improved this year. I think anyone in the MAC can tell you that. I don't know if anyone in the MAC will necessarily say that because, I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into that. Like, for example, Matt Schiltz could be hurt on the first play from scrimmage on Saturday, and then all bets are off.
Yeah. Got to take that with any sport. I mean, it could be one play and he's out for the season, and then they have the upper hand. But I think BG, they will have that upper hand in the QB position.
It seems like we're taking a largely apologist view to this, as if we're playing cheerleader. I want to make that clear that we're not. I'm just appalled at
Muschamps.
I don't want to say the way he handled himself in the press conference because, I mean, obviously at a big-time program, whenever you have quarterback questions or questions about your team, he listed off guys that are not going to be playing. I don't recognize any of these names. I mean, because I'm not I'm not an expert on Florida's roster, but I mean, they're missing a lot of guys. I think he said 5 or 6 guys who will not play. So, I mean, obviously I understand the fact that you get the same questions over and over and over and over again and you get frustrated. But the fact that you can only name one player on the other team's roster
I didn't watch the video, but from what you told me, I wouldn't expect anything more from a SEC coach going into a MAC game. And so that's why it's hard for me to be like, you know what, I think we have a chance to win this because while we do, possibly this is just a bigger, stronger team with better recruits, and
well,
that's a huge factor. Because when you're getting national recruits, compared to more, I would say localized.
I think
recruits. They have their talent is more widespread.
Yes. You bring up an interesting point there. I think one of the interesting underlying storylines to this game is there are a lot of players on the BG roster who are from Florida. And Clawson mentioned that in his press conference that playing these type of games, I mean, you can go on the Athletic website and look at the future schedules. I mean, you have Florida and Virginia Tech this year. Next year, I think it's Indiana and Wisconsin. And the year after that, Indiana's coming here. And BG plays 2 BCS schools in non-conference play every year. And Clawson he said that is a huge recruiting point for them when you're going and recruiting guys in Florida. Hey, we're playing in the Swamp in 2012, so you'll get a game in your home state, which not a lot of MAC schools can promise you. Especially, I mean, if you're a player of that caliber, a 2 or 3 star player in the state of Florida, you're probably getting overlooked by the big programs down there because they go after, as you mentioned, they are national programs who can recruit on a national level.
Yeah, and with how many players on the BG team do we have going? Or are from Florida?
8 or 9.
I mean,
maybe a little more than that.
If they're big factor players,
there is a good.
That could be an upper hand as well. If they want to go there and play well, improve.
We touched on that at the top. Anton Samuel, the starting running back on this team, MAC freshman of the year last year from Opelika, Florida. I don't know where that is exactly. I'm not a geography student. I'm not good. I can tell you the states and capitals, but that's about it. Mm-hmm. So you have that factor. I mean, maybe some of these guys, if they're playing, if they feel, we got overlooked by this, I'm going to come and show you what you missed, which I could totally see Samuel coming out and saying, this is what you're missing out on.
Right.
And he has the talent to back that up, too.
Yeah, definitely.
But you mentioned just a few minutes ago the talent factor, and I think, bless you.
That was just me clearing my throat.
Oh, it sounded like a sneeze that you held in very well. I was about to commend you on that.
Nope.
But the way that Clawson is approaching this game is he was specifically asked about the financial aspect for it, which I think is pretty common knowledge that really the only reason the MAC plays these teams. Well, not the only reason. Obviously, national exposure helps. What was that? It sounded like my phone. But that was not. Oh,
that was me.
Way to go, Mike.
Sorry. Blame Mr. Alex Alushev. He's the one who sent me the Facebook message.
Oh, I hope Alex listens to this.
Yeah, I hope he does.
The BG News City editor. What point are we in the interview right now? The podcast right now?
We are about half hour-ish.
Okay, I'm going to make him listen to this. Alex, you're getting a shout-out right now.
Woot woot.
But Clawson was specifically asked about the financial aspect of this game. I just repeated that because I don't remember where I left off in the statement.
It's okay.
That, the reality of this conference is teams play these type of games because, one, you get national exposure for yourself,
Right.
and two, the other school is basically paying you to come play them. I mean, last year, I think it was Ohio State. We were scheduled to play Ohio State for like $750,000 or something like that, and they wanted us off the schedule. So they said, we're still going to give you the money, just you have to schedule another game.
Right. I
So
remember that, yeah.
I don't know what the exact financial figure is here. I'm not going to speculate on that, but it's at least six figures.
See, I think that kind of stuff is just crap. It's like, just come play. It's
Well, we'll see. That's the thing, though, is we're not going down to play for Florida unless they're paying us because that is an expensive trip.
right.
And there's absolutely, I mean,
I think a lot of players have to pay for it themselves.
no,
No? Is
unless
it fully expensed?
it should be, unless I don't know if walk-ons would have to pay. I'm not sure, but it would be. It's fully compensated by either our athletic department or their athletic department. There are some times when the hosting team's athletic department will pay for it. I don't know how often that is.
In this case, it might be though, because
Yeah, but if you're traveling that much, I mean, you're gonna 9 out of 10 times get killed. There's no reason to play that game then.
right.
But I mean, he took the question in stride and said, that's just the reality of our conference, and I think it's commendable how he's approaching this game because he's completely approaching it the right way. The reason I brought that up is because you mentioned the talent aspect, and he basically said, it's not a direct quote, but it's because I think someone asked him about the West Virginia game last year and how they prepared for that. I mean, obviously it didn't go well. It was like 45-10 or something like that. And he asked him, does it change? How do you prepare in light of that? Oh, there goes the toilet again.
Every time.
Every time it seems like someone has to go to the bathroom.
We should make that like a segment. Every time the toilet flush, we have to do something.
Did you hear the toilet flush? We'll think of that. But
I'll make a jingle.
Yeah, a toilet song.
Oh, and there's our cue.
But he essentially said, you're playing a game like this, it doesn't change the way you prepare. You can't, prepare any differently for a more talented team. You can't control the 90,000 fans that are going to be there. You can't control the weather. Obviously, I think it was just downgraded to a tropical storm. Tropical Storm Isaac is going through the south at this time. I don't know if it's going to be cleared up by then. So, I mean, it could be adverse weather conditions because of that. But Clausen essentially said you can't control these things. You can only control... We can't control anything other than how we prepare. And he essentially said they're preparing for this game like they would any season opener.
Yeah.
So
I would expect them to.
So they're going into this with the right mindset, I think, compared to Florida, who I think this is everything I've said about Florida is just complete speculation on my part. That I think they're going into this game with the mentality that they're going to use it to test things for their SEC schedule because, as we mentioned, after this game, they dive right into it and they don't get another non-conference game until November.
Right.
So, I mean, I can't say that I blame them for that because you have to treat this as essentially a preseason game, I guess.
Yeah,
from their perspective.
for them, it doesn't mean anything.
Well,
other than rankings.
For rankings, yes, but I don't think anyone's considering Florida a national title contender at this point. If it was Alabama, say, then yes, obviously this game does mean something because you lose this game, you're not going to the national championship.
Right.
Regardless, well, I guess if you run the table in the SEC, some pollsters will look back at this and say it was early in the season. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
But we talked about how this is I don't remember what I was going to say.
You're having a lot of those tonight.
Yeah, I am.
He's blanking out a lot.
I just got out of a
Mike
4-hour class.
Mike, do you know what he...
No, but I was going to say I do that all the time on my own podcast, so do not worry.
Yeah, I just
Okay,
got
good.
out of a
Good to know.
4-hour class, so my mind's a little scrambled still.
We might benefit from actually recording these earlier.
Yeah, well,
That way also you don't sound like this the entire podcast.
I'm so sorry,
Oh,
Mike.
Ryan is
That's-
so monotone.
That's the first shot. Well, that's like the third shot fired of the evening. I don't remember what the first two were.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well,
Let's
I
listen to
think-
the podcast
the
again.
first shot was the Michigan Appalachian
That's right.
State.
That's right. That was the first one.
Yeah.
But
Cool, guys. Real cool.
Love you too, Nate.
I hate looking for defensive stats online because ESPN, that's my go-to thing just because they have the offensive stats nice and readily made.
Well, how many bashes you've
No, I'm not
shot
bashing. I'm not bashing ESPN there. I'm just saying that's my go-to thing. It's a pain in my butt looking for defensive stats because they're so difficult to find and sort through.
So what's going to happen, though, is they're going to hear this podcast and be like, it's bashing our thing. You're just going to, on this next episode, you're going to go to ESPN and be like, it's blocked.
Find his IP address.
No Ryan Sakoviak.
Well, looking at Florida's offensive stats last year, they were not impressive. They obviously, I mean, you lose your starting quarterback halfway through the year. That kind of happens.
Mm-hmm.
But they were 89th in the nation with 180 yards passing per game and 73rd in rushing with 143 yards rushing per game. 71st in points scored.
Ouch.
Not very good. I mean, but granted, I mean, you're playing a completely different level of competition than Bowling Green offers. I think that's a fair statement to make.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think anyone's going to argue with that with you.
But their defense, the only defensive stat that I can find on ESPN's page is that they were 20th in points against. So their defense is very good. And I think...
And SEC defenses are always really fast.
SEC defenses are always fast. And, I mean, you can say, I mean, you know, BG has experience, blah, 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 blah. But BG does not have SEC speed.
No.
So I think in the end, that is what the difference in this game is the fact that Florida is just faster and can cover better and can run people down faster. So, I mean, it's not going to be like, I remember the Miami game last year, Anton Samuel broke off a 96-yard touchdown run. That's not going to happen in this game because he's not going to be able to outrun the linebackers like that, or the secondary guys for that matter. But, I mean, he's not even going to be able to get to that third level, I think, very often because of the fact that the linebackers for Florida are so fast.
So what do you think the Falcons are going to have to rely on to win this game?
Passing.
I can see that. I could definitely see Florida relying more on the running game, especially if the defense isn't there. If our defense isn't there.
Yeah. I think Florida will rely on the running game. Mac Brown, the backup tailback for Florida, he was mentioned a lot by Muschamp in his press conference about a guy who's impressed. Starting running back is a guy you don't even know how to pronounce his name. Gillespie? It's like Gillespie, but without a P. I'm just going to stare at it because it looks weird. I mean, you're right, though. I mean, Florida has, I mean, they have a very good offensive line. They very experienced. All five. There's no three starters on the offensive line. Why are you making head motions at me?
Because you keep doing this and
this.
You keep going
I'm trying to like tilt my head so I can get in the mic and still look at my computer screen.
Turn your computer screen.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah.
But all five starters on Florida's offensive line have been in that program for 3 years. So, I mean, they're experienced. They have 3 years of a college strength and conditioning program behind them. So, I mean, that's a very experienced offensive line unit. So, I mean, even if your backfield is incredibly green but still has that SEC athleticism that we seem to be so fond of talking about today, I mean, you're going to have holes there.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
I think the strength of this BG defense is the front seven, led by Chris Jones, Dwayne Woods, Ronnie Goebel, Jarris Campbell. I mean, guys who started last year, Zach Colvin. Then, I mean, linebacker Paul Swan, Dwayne Woods. I mean, guys like that. They're very, very good players who I think are going to be instrumental in BG's season this year once they get to MAC play. But, I mean, how will they go? How will they hold up against an SEC offensive line?
It's gonna be
It's gonna be
tough. It's gonna be tough. Do you say defensive or offensive line?
How our defensive line will hold up against their offensive line. I mean, you look at their defensive line too. They run a 3-4. That's always tricky to go against. I mean, because then you have that extra athleticism out on the field in the fourth linebacker. But Florida's defensive line, I'm confusing myself now. Also very experienced, all guys who have at least 3 years in the program. So,
I could see, Chris Jones in the defense.
There are some big dudes on that defensive line too.
Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off. But yes, I agree with your point about Chris Jones. I can see him having a very big game.
I could see him leading the defense over
because
the offense.
I go from this perspective regarding Chris Jones, Matt Shills, Dwayne Woods, guys who everyone in the MAC knows who they are, but not the nation, because on top of playing in front of 90,000 people, this game is going to be nationally broadcasted to millions of homes via ESPN, the 3:30 game, Eastern Time. If we have any West Coast listeners, hi, Mom and Dad, how are you doing? But sort of as their, I don't want to say coming out party,
yeah,
but like their opportunity to show the college football world that, hey, just because we're a MAC school doesn't mean we don't have, there's a better way to phrase that, because that just sounds like a quadruple negative. Mm-hmm. Their way of saying, just because we play in the MAC doesn't mean we aren't as good as everyone else. Because those are guys that I think right now the majority of BCS teams would take to play for them. Because you got experience, you have skill, talent, whatever you want to call it. I mean, they've done it before. I mean, all conference selection, I think 2 years in a row, both of them. So,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to add to this. I think there was.
What do you got? Something.
Just to say, you guys are running at about the 45-minute mark. So.
All right, so we're good on time. I think there was something else, but I can't remember what it is. So we will go into predictions. Nate.
Overall scores? Is that what we're going for?
You know what? You can go score if you want, or you can just predict a winner, a score range. You can, we're flexible. You can do whatever you want.
Let's say...
University of Michigan loses.
I want to go... I want to go big on Florida and just small on BG because I just think that's how it's going to work out. So, I want to say 21-3.
Okay. So BG still covers in that scenario, which I think if it was
score at least.
Yeah, I think if it was a 21-3 game, there's absolutely no shame in that. I'm in the same boat as you. I think it's going to be something along those lines. I mean, I would not be surprised if BG came out and won this game. At the same time, I would not be surprised if Florida came out and put up 70 points. Because
it'd be exciting if we won.
It would be.
Hopefully, it would get people to come out to the football stadium.
I think that would be one of the athletic department does their 10 biggest stories of every year. I think that would be the biggest story in BG sports this year without having seen anything else. Barring
no other games
the basketball team
win this one.
Barring the basketball team winning the MAC title or the hockey team advancing to the NCAA tournament. Yeah. I think that would be the biggest story in BG sports this year. Or if they beat Virginia Tech later this year.
Yeah.
Now we're looking ahead 4 games, and that's not what we should be doing.
We'll get there.
Eventually,
in 4 weeks, we'll get there.
But I'm going to go with you on this one. I'm going to say, I'll say 35-14, Florida.
That's respectable.
We'll get to the end zone a couple times. I think it'll be like the Michigan game in 2010, where, no, that's not how it was because Denard Robinson had 100 yards rushing 7 minutes into that game. How it was, Michigan went up like 28-0 or something like that, and then BG came back briefly, and all the old grouchy men sitting in our section were just like, "Oh my God, this is a bunch of horse hockey." I think it'll be. Why are you looking at me funny?
I was gonna say, was that censored?
I said horse hockey.
I know. Well,
no. Well, they might have actually said horse hockey. Okay. I don't remember though. That was 2 years ago. I think it'll be close at halftime. It'll be like, I can't be 17-14 at halftime because I kept it symmetrical. I'll say 34-14 to keep it in line with this prediction that I'm trying to do now. It'll be 17-14 or something like that at halftime, and then Florida will just pull away late in the game. Too much athleticism and speed.
I could see our team getting tired by the half.
Yeah. We'll see how well they're conditioned. It's probably going to be a very hot day, so hydration will be a key.
Down obviously. In the swamp.
Yep. So, I guess with that, we will close up. I don't remember how we closed last week.
Well, you cussed the last time.
I did. I said a couple no-no words.
But nobody knows about
exactly.
Because no one will ever hear it.
The FCC can't get after me for that one. But as Mike mentioned when he was introducing the podcast, we still don't have a name for this podcast.
Right.
We were joking before that we were just going to call it Lemonade. So that's currently the leader in the clubhouse, that it's just going to be called Lemonade.
Lemonade.
If for the 10 of you who end up listening to this,
including Ryan's mom and dad, because I know my mom and at least my dad will. I don't know if my mom will.
Mine won't. They don't know how to work a computer all that well.
For the 10 of you who end up listening to this, if you want to come up with a name for the podcast and send it our way, I don't know what our news email is.
You can. How about they tweet it at us?
I don't know if anyone even reads the news email. You can tweet it at us at BG News Sports, or you can tweet it at our individual Twitter accounts.
Or they can tweet it at the news too.
Or you could tweet it at the BG News, _BG_news. Erin runs that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so she'll tell us if anyone tweets it. So you can tweet at us at BG News Sports or at the _BG_news. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you know what both of those Twitter handles are. Or if you're feeling more personal, you can tweet it at our individual Twitter accounts. And I think this is where we should just put a bunch of infographics up on this YouTube page so they can visualize, because visual aid helps.
All right. All right.
That speaking, we'll talk about my last name here. At Ryan_Satkowiak.
Stalkow Hooverback?
No, not that. In the class I just got out of, there's a guy. I don't remember his last name, but his name is Ryan, and his last name sounded very familiar to mine. It was like, I don't remember, but I thought it was me, so I raised my hand here, and then the name after it was my name, and I was like, oh crap. I didn't say oh crap, that was censored. I'm like, wait a minute, that was me, and my teacher looks at me like, do you think I'm some sort of dumb person? And I was like, well, I've heard worse pronunciations before, so. But yes, my Twitter handle is at Ryan_Satkowiak.
Mine is at NastyNate501.
Nasty Nate.
Mike?
Mike,
Did we plug Mike last time?
He said he didn't want to be plugged.
I mean, I'm just the behind-the-scenes guy,
Stat boy.
so, yeah.
Oh, well.
And by stat boy, I mean guy who makes fun of us when we don't do something right.
He makes faces at us.
He makes all kinds of weird faces at us. But we'll put some infographics
Maybe I'll
up.
put a silly picture of Mike in the video.
And
All right, let's do that.
Just put my face.
But you should be
I'll
able to.
I'll be the face of the
That
show.
embarrassing photo from last week's party.
Oh,
Oh, man.
what do you mean, Nate? We don't party.
Damn it. You're supposed to keep that going.
But yeah, we'll put some infographics
You're the
up
most
there so you
sober
guys can
kids
see.
you've ever met.
Except when you mix. Ah, so bad. Anyways,
you can check out the football game this Saturday, ESPN, 3:30 Eastern Time, BG versus Florida. And check us out again next week.
if you have any questions too,
Yes.
tweet us.
I'm glad you mentioned that as well. You can tweet at us names for the podcast. If obviously we're not reading this live, so we can't do any sort of live reading this live. We're not shooting this live.
You said names. You meant questions.
God bless America.
Questions. If you have
If you
questions.
Well, no. I meant tweet podcast names at us, as we mentioned, or if you're feeling personal and you want a question answered on the air, it can be anything. This is a sports podcast, but I mean,
Please write in.
Depending on, I might be able to set something up, depending on how many people you guys get to listen to this, where we could live stream the podcast. Like I can hook my camera up to my laptop, and
That'd be cool.
they can watch you guys.
but I'm not wearing any pants right now.
Uh-oh.
Womp womp.
Just kidding. I am fully clothed.
No, he's not.
That's up to you, listeners.
But yes,
That's the
Podcast-
question of the week. Is Ryan wearing pants in this podcast?
Just have a part page, like, is
the
Ryan wearing
BG News Lemonade of the week.
Maybe
No.
we'll put a poll up online.
Is Ryan
Should
wearing any
Should Ryan wear pants in the next episode?
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
Yes. Podcast names, questions, concerns, threats, comments.
Tweet.
Go ahead and tweet at us any of the handles we mentioned above. Until next week, I am Ryan Sokoviak.
I am Nathan Alconage.
I'm Mike Nowak.
Stat Boy.
Okay, Stat Boy. And this is the first episode of the unnamed BG News Sports Podcast.
There you go.
Good night, everybody.